Hey guys, Scott and Vanessa Martindale here with Blended Kingdom Families. At BKF, we believe now is the time to change the modern day interpretation of the blended family.
Absolutely, you guys. As a blended family ourselves, God laid it on our hearts to build a ministry that helps support blended families by equipping your marriage, uniting the family unit, and igniting your faith. Our mission is that you would be touched by God and experience His goodness through this ministry, that your family would have practical skills, resources, and tools to help you live that abundant blended life.
Hey guys, welcome to the BKF podcast. We are so excited that you're here today. Before we get started, please take an opportunity, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to tell you when a new episode is released.
Yes, you guys, we are so excited to have Nurse Kelley Johnson in the house today. What? I just want to tell you all a little bit about Nurse Kelley. So she's a registered nurse, but she's also a nursing advocate, public speaker, and the most recent former Miss California USA. Previously, she's represented the Miss Colorado organization across the nation as Miss Colorado 2015. Kelley is remembered for her nursing monologue performance in 2015 that led to the famous Doctor's Stethoscope comment on the television show The View, and the hashtag Nurse Unite campaign ignited across America. And she's going to talk more about that. But over the past 3 years, Kelley has been included in appearances on the Ellen DeGeneres Show, Dr. Oz, The Doctors, E! News, Inside Edition, and various other television, radio networks and shows. Man, sister, you are all over the place, but that is awesome. She's done speaking engagements all across the country where she's consistently represented and advocated for the profession of nursing on a national level, which we love. BSN right here.
Yeah, work with nurses.
Work with nurses over here. We love nurses. We love all our nurses. Kelley also comes from a blended family, you guys. So we had the opportunity to sit down with her and hear her story, and we just loved just the nuggets of wisdom that she had to give. So we're excited for her to share that today. But she has an amazing stepfather, Gene, who married her mother when she was 5 years old. Kelley and Gene are very close and have a special story to share of father-daughter love and bonding after tragedy. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Kelley graduated summa cum laude from nursing school at Grandview University. She's a smart cookie, where she is also the valedictorian, and she is a family nurse practitioner, you guys, and currently the chief nurse advocate, Wanderly National spokeswoman, and charismatic brand. So, wowzers.
It took up a lot of energy to talk all about the things that you've done, Kelley.
I know. I can't even. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me and for the enthusiasm. It's crazy. I've heard that bio because I do keynote speaking around the country, and it just doesn't get old. And I think it's like a pinch me moment every time. I just feel like there's no way that was all my life, but it's true. It was great. It's been really fun. And thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm so happy to be here with you both.
Awesome. Well, for those who may not know, and I just want to kind of touch this for a minute and tell a little bit about kind of how this kind of blew up. Can you talk us through kind of how the stethoscope moment went and kind of what happened with that?
Yes, so I'll try to give you guys the condensed version. But basically, when I went to Miss America, most people, choose the stage talent, and I chose to do a nursing monologue. So I had played volleyball my whole life. I was an athlete. So when I wanted to compete in pageantry and they said, you're going to have to come up with a talent, it was very foreign to me, very unfamiliar of the stage talents, I guess you could say. So I just thought about what I could do. And I thought, if I actually win, I understand that you have to do this talent multiple times, throughout your year. So you better do something that's honest and authentic, because if you win, you're going to have to do it a lot. So I just thought, well, I'm a nurse. I just graduated. I just passed NCLEX, just became licensed, and was working in a cardiothoracic surgical ICU. And I just thought, I think I'll talk about nursing. If I'm going to talk about something, I think I'm a good writer. I love to write poetry and things like that. So let's talk about nursing. So my monologue was kind of about it never being okay to call someone just a nurse. And we even do it to ourselves, but it was just a monologue about that's never okay. Well, I made it to the top 10 on finals night at Miss America. And so I performed my talent, I guess you could say, for the entire country. And the next morning, the television show The View actually went through all 10 of the talents that had performed the night before. But when they got to mine, and well, they made fun of all of us. Basically, they literally went through all 10 and just made fun of everybody. But when they got to me, I wasn't doing a stage talent. So it's easy, you know, to poke fun at someone if you don't love their singing voice or don't love the dance that they choose. I mean, it's fine. But it's still kind of yucky, but when you make fun of an entire profession, you have the entire profession to answer to. So it just kind of blew up, and it became this really, really offensive comment that happened to nurses. They basically just asked, why is she wearing a doctor's stethoscope when I was up there giving my monologue, insinuating that nurses don't know how to use, you know, the main equipment that we use every single day and are more than qualified to use. So it was just very offensive. And so nurses were very angry, and it just blew up. It blew up into hashtags, various campaigns. And the best part about it for me was that it was a very teachable moment. I got to see it from a bird's eye view and go on all these television shows and discuss it. But that gave me an opportunity to teach. It gave me an opportunity to explain what nurses do, who we are, what our role in the healthcare team is, for a lot of people who were probably like those television hosts and may not have understood. So it was really an incredible blessing in disguise, and it brought nursing together like I've never seen before, and I don't think has happened ever before. And I don't take even responsibility. It was the nursing communities that did it, but it was just a really, really cool movement. But yeah, it was, if you have nurses watching, if they were a nurse or in nursing school around 2015, they probably remember that story, because it was a big deal for a long time. And it gave me a career and a lot of opportunities to talk about nursing, which is my favorite thing to do.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Love that.
Well, beyond that, can you tell us a little bit about, your past, your story, and a little bit about your family?
Yeah, definitely. I was so glad when you asked me to be on the podcast and when you guys started explaining, what you do here and your initiatives, because for me, I was so young when Jean entered our family that it was not any part of my decision. But I think now looking back, I've had 20 years of a blended family, plus I think more, probably 22 or 23. And so it's given me some insight that I'm excited to share. But yeah, when I was 4 years old, my biological father was diagnosed with cancer and passed away. And my mom remarried when I was 6 to Jean, and right before I turned 6, but I was very close. But yeah, he joined our family, and it was just the best. I mean, at the time I was so young, so it was just almost like a new friend to play with, right? I was very excited. And then I'm sure we'll talk about, the further years, but yeah, we didn't become a blended family through divorce, or we became a blended family through death. And so it was definitely at the time when my dad passed away, a serious tragedy for our family. I mean, it was absolutely horrific. And then going into this really light time and really bright time of our life where Jean joined our family too. And so I think I have 2 older sisters, and I think we all have different experiences just with us being such far differences in ages, where my oldest sister and I are 10 years apart. So we all have different experiences with both losing my father and welcoming Jean. And so I've talked to them about this podcast, so I think I'll have some good insight. But yeah, we definitely have a unique situation, but it's not one that's uncommon. So
yeah. No, that's so good. We've heard a few more stories about where people have been blended through death versus just divorce, which is, I think, more common. But, Kelley, you talked about when we talked, prior to the podcast, you talked about the tough teenage years on step parents and how us as teenagers can be really hard on our step parents. And I remember being really tough on my stepdad and coming back years later and being like, hey, you did an awesome job, and I'm sorry I was such a brat to you. But you also talk about how we can give grace to them. And so, growing up blended, and going through those years and your older siblings as well, what helped you and your siblings and your family, go through that process? How did y'all, learn to give grace to Jean, or kind of how did that relationship develop over the years?
Sure. Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that you looked back on it and said something to him, because we have all done that. So we are united in that. And I guess, that's also kind of maybe advice in itself of maybe somebody who's a teenager right now who's watching this. You do regret it. You do regret the times you're tough on them, and you do come around, and maybe not for everybody. I'm not sure of everyone's relationship in the future with their step parents, but if yours is as solid as Jean and I, it's definitely something I regret being so hard on him. But yeah, I mean, honestly, throughout my teenage years, you said it very perfectly. It took years to build that relationship, because I think I loved him so much when he came in the family. Like I said, well, I always say he completed our family. When I do keynotes, I say he was the glue that kind of picked up all of our broken pieces and put us back together. But yeah, when it was like, he's a new friend, right when they got married, and he's just so much fun to play with, and he takes me on all these fun trips and adventures. And then it was like teenage years was the, you're not my dad, that cred that I just, it's like, even saying it just feels icky. Right. And I regret that I've ever said those words, because he's the loveliest human being. But it was tough. And I think I was tough on him probably for about 3 or 4 years. And it wasn't always being tough on them. Of course, those years still had really bright spots too, but you're just going through so many changes. There's so many hormones. You're angry and you don't know why, or you're frustrated. And there's so much happening at school. And there's just so much that's going on for teenagers that the second anybody tries to be in an authoritarian position with them, they're going to be defiant. And then if they're in your house, they're going to probably try to find language that's not very kind, because it's easy, right? You're so close to home that it's just easy for them to do that. And that's how they're going to get away with things, or try to not be disciplined, or whatever it may be. And I've absolutely lived it. But I think how we got through that for sure was, I remember the time that I said, well, you're not my dad, to him. I will never forget it. And my mom and I had some really deep conversations after that. And I had immediate regret. They came out of my mouth and I wanted to put them back in. But it was just, I was frustrated at the time. And it was one of those moments. And so I think the way that our family worked through the times where the teenage years, all three of us girls were tough on both of my parents, was definitely just through a lot of conversations when you're not in that situation. So when you're not in the heat of the moment, conversations later on about how it's definitely painful and hurtful to hear those things, especially when someone who, in my instance, Gene had spent at that point, a decade of his life being nothing but wonderful to all of us, and had never missed a choir concert or a volleyball game or whatever we were into. And so he was the face I looked for in the stands. And it was the one person I was being the nastiest to, in that moment, with a dig that was way below the belt. And so I just definitely think that conversations help, especially about how much those words will stick with you and with them, and how much you probably don't mean them, for sure, for conversations. But we also did a lot of things one-on-one. And I think that was really helpful. Gene would take us on what he called adventures, and he wouldn't tell us where we were going, but it'd be like our favorite wing spot into a volleyball game, at the local college or whatever it was. Yeah, it was so fun. And so he always kept trying, and he always kept conversations, and he always gave us our privacy too. When we were teenagers, they didn't, they still were very much so parenting, but it would just, he gave us our privacy if we needed to talk to our mom, or or we needed just him, or we just wanted to be left alone. He was really good at recognizing that we were growing into young women and we had a lot of things and feelings, and he just kind of let us do that while just also still being such a solid, father figure for all of us. And father, I mean, he's just the best. But yeah, definitely communication, I would say, deep conversations, special time, just one-on-one, even if it sometimes feels a little awkward, just little things then, coffee dates or ice cream dates or anything. And then, and I think then just always kind of having that where you still have your privacy, you still have your alone time, and you still have that relationship with your biological parent. For me, it was for my mom.
Wow. Yeah.
One of the questions that comes to me is, as siblings, did you guys collectively decide? You're like, hey, listen, maybe we should be really nice to this guy, or, hey, I think we can get away with this. But not only then, but I think kind of, and we've talked to a lot of blended families who've kind of gone through the seasons and have gotten to the other side and have adult children. And I'm sure those conversations with children and step parents are priceless at that point. You look back and you're like, oh my gosh, what an amazing thing you did. And I think the reason I'm asking the question is a lot of people who watch our podcast are in that fire season. They're in the really hard parenting seasons, and I'd love to give them hope of what comes from that. So how did you and your siblings, and I'm talking about as a collective, approach having Gene in your life, approach him as the father figure with your mom? How did you guys collectively bond?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I think there's kind of a two-part answer. First, everybody loved him. There was no doubt that all three of my sister, we all loved him and were excited they were going to be together. However, what I will say, and this might be very specific to those who have a blended family due to death or due to loss, but for us, my oldest sister, like I said, is 10 years older than me. And so we actually all, I think, had different stages right when we first came in still grieving the loss of our father while also loving Jean. And so my oldest sister was very much so grieving my father for a very long time. And they were very close. I mean, she was 14 when he passed away. They did everything together.
Yeah.
And so she was very, very sad about that and missed him. And of course, wanted him to still be a part of all these different things in our family. And so we had, the Christmas candle, we still hung up his stocking, things like that. And so Jean became an addition to our family for sure. He would never even allow us to call him a replacement. That's not what any of us felt, but we made sure that was also symbolized through things that we did in the home. But Lindsay was my oldest sister was a little bit, she just missed my dad, I think, so much that it wasn't that she was closed off to accepting Jean. I think she was just very focused on still grieving my father. Carrie, who's my middle sister, was kind of in between. She knew my dad, definitely. She was 8 when he passed away, and knew him very well and very much so missed him, while also still being so young and still totally needing a father figure at all of her sporting events, or when she needs help, or, when we get our first cars and things like that. So she was in the middle of missing my dad so much. And I think wanting to honor that while also accepting Jean a lot more, I think, than in the beginning, for sure, than Lindsay was necessarily open to. And then for me, I was so little, I was 4.5 when my dad passed away, that I definitely remember him and have memories, but I didn't have the 14 years of building bonding time with him. And so for me, it was just much easier. I would just say, not that I didn't miss him or grieve him or still don't, but I definitely still do. So, but it's just, I was so much more open to welcoming Jean because I was just this little kid, but it was like a buddy. So we've all had such different steps. And for other people too, I think that's important to remember. If you do have kids that are being in the tough season, especially with Lindsay, for her, she was right at 14, right? So she was in her teenage years, and then all this horrible stuff had happened. Then this really great event had happened. So it was just so much, I think, for her to kind of process, but they're so close now. And she has her daughter Harper, and Jean is Papa to Harper, and there's no step or any addition like that. It's just, he's just Papa, and Harper's over all the time and loves my parents so much. And yeah, it's just, it just gets better. And he was very good, like I said, of giving her space to grieve and never, ever trying to make her feel like there was a replacement or that he was her dad, but that also that he loved her so much that he wanted to be a part of her life and to share it. And so I think you definitely have different, I guess we can just maybe like hearts, you just have different hearts for it all. I mean, my heart was so open to him, and Lindsay's, it's not that she doesn't love him. It's that she just really misses my dad, and they are different. She loves Jean so much, but she really misses my father, which is totally okay. But we do have just very different experiences with that, because I grew up with Jean at everything. And he was the second face next to my mom that, made us a family and made me not a million questions at everything, where's your dad or what happened to your dad? It was, Jean was there so I could bring it up if I wanted to, but he also gave me the freedom to not have to if I wasn't comfortable. And so it was just, we just had different experiences for sure. And I would say we collectively definitely decided to love him, and he's just everything to all of us. I mean, he's so much our family's rock, but we also definitely did have those trying times, and we all experienced welcoming him and accepting him, and when that was going to be, and how close we are now with him. We just experienced it differently. So yeah, and we definitely, everyone loves him and accepted him. That's not even a thing. He is the part of our family. It's immediate, but we definitely had different experiences on how much time that took.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love that. Kelley, for any, children or teenagers or maybe just young adults that are, walking in that season right now where they've had loss and maybe in the past and, their family is blending, what encouragement or advice would you want to impart to them? And even maybe to like a step parent who is stepping into that situation and is about to take on some kiddos who have lost their biological parent, and they're going to, like you said, not be that replacement, but be that new addition. Yeah,
I think the best advice that we can give to all the teenagers, I think, or even just the kiddos, for sure, who are having a blended experience right now, is just to let them know that there is no such thing as a replacement, and to hopefully that they can understand for sure that this person joining will also make their mom or their dad very, very happy. And they wouldn't be, I promise you, I learned this much later in life, but my mom never made that decision carelessly. My mom never introduced Jean to us without thinking about it a million times and it keeping her up at night. My mom and Jean both asked us before an engagement ring was even a discussion. I mean, we were involved in every decision, and my mom thought so long and so hard about bringing him into our family because she was protecting us. So if your parents have made that decision, it's not because they're trying to be selfish or it's something you just need to deal with. It's because they really believe this human being will love you and will care for you and will take care of you and will be there for you throughout the rest of your life. And is it going to be a positive addition to your family? And so if you can try to soften and give some grace too, for sure, and let that happen, it's also will behoove you as well to be able to have that other person, right? I mean, Gene for me is such a rock for me. He's just everything to me. And if I hadn't ever softened in those teenage years and let him in and really gotten to know him even further and done so many, now what we've done trips to Nashville and all these fun things together, just us, I would have really been missing out. And I don't think that my pride or that my dad, my grief would have wanted me to just sit in frustration or being bummed out or sad or, well, you're not my real dad, or this can't be, we're never going to be a family again. If you sit in that negativity and stay there, one, you'll probably regret it. But two, I really believe most people are probably missing out on someone who is so lovely, who really, really wants a positive relationship with you, who's going to be a fantastic addition to your life if you let them. And so it takes time, and it definitely takes patience for sure.
Yeah.
On the step parents' part, you have to be patient because everybody grieves in different ways and for different amounts of time. I think there needs to be lots of communication and conversation with the biological parent, especially because if you let your kid put their grief in a box, right, and you make them be okay, and you put that grief in a box and you put the box up on the shelf and you say, well, you've got to be okay. Come on, Johnny, this is your new stepfather. You got to be okay. The kid, first of all, is not going to deal with the grief, which is absolutely necessary to, I think, live a functional adult life. They have to be able to process and to grieve and to be sad. That's okay. Then you're also forcing this human being on them. So it takes so much time and patience and therapy and conversations and whatever you believe in your home that works, but you have to walk through it. You can't go under or around the grief. You have to walk through the grief. You have to walk through the hard times, because if you don't, and you don't communicate about them and really navigate them as a family, then you're going to be in some tricky waters, and you may never get to that soft, loving place where a step parent is really welcome. So you have to do the work. You have to do the hard stuff for sure. But both people have to be patient. They both have to come from a space of letting their heart be soft and accepting that person for sure.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I love that. Well, and you said two things, grace and patience. And that's just, that is what Jesus is. It's all throughout Scripture.
Yeah.
But when you talked about walking through it, I think it's in the book of Psalms, it talks about walking through the valley of Baca. And, it's not talking about like you stop and you sit in your grief, like you walk through the valley. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, like you're walking through it, you're going to get through it, but just not sitting there and letting really the enemy, I think, keep you there, and that's, we've talked about this before where, grief is something that, he almost wants to celebrate in that and keep us in those hard spots. But there is abundant life out there past, loss, past events that have, maybe caused trauma or heartache. So I love that you said that. And I just love your perspective, for both, kids having grace for their step parents, and step parents having patience with the kids. It's vital. It's vital to the health of the relationship.
Well, and I give kudos to Gene.
Yeah.
That's being a step parent myself and understanding that what he did was such a unique calling to step into. So I celebrate him and his patience and grateful for the grace that you guys gave him. So Kelley, last question we have, and we ask this of all of our guests, Blended Kingdom Families is our ministry, but what is a blended kingdom family to you?
Oh gosh. Well, for me, it was my parents as our blended family for sure were always good leaders. They were always positive examples. And for us, Gene, we definitely went to church all the time. We did all the fun trips. We did, we were in the youth group and we did Bible study, Bible camp. We did a really fun Bible camp up in Estes Park, Colorado. I'm in Denver right now. That's why I pointed. I can see. But for us, my parents were both leaders. They have an incredible amount of respect for each other. We do we did family prayers, we did Christmas, we did, we did all the holidays, we did all the going to church. My stepdad and he made it another fun adventure. Him and I would sometimes do the Christmas Eve candlelight service at midnight. So we would go to the late one. That was our thing. And so he definitely led and is a man of Christ. And he was a leader, but he also just showed so much respect to my mom and allowed her to do that for us as well. But we've come to expect that almost of him. So for our blended family, especially being in the kingdom, we came to expect Gene's prayers and Gene's advice and his leadership to go to the church service and him to plan these sorts of things. And so it was kind of almost where we went from being these 4 women who had still done those things beforehand to just being able to kind of watch him lead us through all of that. And it was really nice. Awesome. Even this Christmas, none of us were together because of pandemic, or Thanksgiving. And Gene videotaped his prayer before he started, to eat. And he sent it out to the family text that we would all still have that. And that's just something that we always do as a family before we eat any meal. And so it was just, he knows we've come to expect that he'll be that leader for us. And it's just been, he always has risen to that challenge, but they've just also been fantastic examples. Both my parents did public speaking and were involved in Kiwanis and Rotary clubs and service clubs all over. And they really were involved in the community, and they gave back. And he was always, they led, and in their walk in Christ and our whole life as Christians, they've just led us through their example almost every single day. I can't think of one time where I really ever can imagine an explosive argument or any time where he was nasty to one of us or my mom was nasty. Not one time can I think of that. And so for me, they just were always on their best behavior and so in love and so much respect for each other that it just kind of trickled down to us. They were so Christ-like every day that it was so easy to want to be like them. And it made our lives easier. We were very lucky I'm lucky to have that, to be able to say that as a kid. I can't look back and think of some awful time where my parents were horrible to each other. I mean, of course they had arguments. I mean, that's just life, but it was never, I can't think of one explosive situation where Gene ever lost his temper with my mother, not one time. And I think for 4 women, that's incredibly important. But he also was just in that same way, even though he was so soft-spoken and reserved in those kind of moments, he was so fierce in leading us to Christ and leading us at every single, in everything that we would do. I mean, he was absolutely the leader while still allowing us all to be ourselves and to flourish and to blossom and to make decisions for ourselves and to grow up and to learn. But he was always the strong foot ahead of you. And he was always the shoulder to lean on. And I even remember too, I'm sorry if I'm getting off topic, but
you're fine.
He was just the guy I always went to when something went wrong. And I remember my sister too. So like I said, my sisters, it was a little different with the timing of acceptance, but I remember Carrie was in high school and had her driver's license, and we got in a car accident, and Gene was the first phone number that she called, and he came within minutes. He was on the side of the road. I remember when I thought I had lost my opportunity to go to state for volleyball my senior year of high school, which is of course very exciting. We had lost a game. I thought I lost that opportunity. I bypassed my mom to hug Gene and to just cry into his chest. And so that took, 15 years to get to that point where we were at. But then he became, through everyday examples for us, someone that we could never see ourselves without. And the first phone call that we made in a tough time. And I think that definitely took his perseverance and patience, but also showing up. He showed up every day. He never quit. And he was always a good example. And I'll never be able to thank him for making a choice to take on 4 women after no kids himself, none of that. He made a conscious decision to be that. And then every single day fought day in and out for all of us, for our love, for our acceptance, to protect us, to provide for us. I mean, I can't think of a more selfless act. And I also hope that we've been able to give him back what he's given us, which I don't even know if that's possible, but I really hope so, because I think the years that you spend in those times of not getting over, but walking through the grief and moving forward with your life and accepting and loving a new step parent, they're tricky and they're necessary, but as much as you can communicate and try to do it quickly, it's really fun on the other side.
Oh, that's awesome.
Man, that's beautiful.
Well, I love the encouragement that comes from your story to step parents.
Yeah.
When I hear the story, I'm thinking about the step parent who's watching that and going, what do I do tomorrow?
Yeah.
And how can because I think every step parent has a goal for their stepchild to say what you said.
Exactly.
That's the goal. That is what we do is how do we get to that side and our stepchild go, yeah, you did the best and I am healthy. So I am so encouraged to the encouragement that you're giving step parents right now, and grateful for that story. And it's just, I love your story. It's amazing, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, Kelley, we're just so thankful that, for you to just share your time and your heart and your story with us. We know that just gives so much encouragement and hope, not only to children who have walked, a similar path as you with the loss of a parent, but also for, on the other side of it, the step parents. And, that's what the ministry is about. It's just to help bring hope and encouragement to all of these families who are going through those situations. And so thank you so much, Kelley, for being here with us today and sharing your heart with us.
Kelley, can you tell everybody, Kelley, you can tell everybody where to find you, all your social media stuff.
Yeah. Sure. Well, this is okay. I have to kind of give you guys a little bit of the funny story. So when this whole thing happened with The View, right, at 22 years old, my agents at the time said, okay, well, we gotta, so many people are trying to contact you. Let's change your Instagram handle. And this was, remember, like 6 or 7 years ago, whatever it was. And so it's real Nurse Kelley, but I did not pick it. I was 22. I didn't have a say. And some people are, like, oh, is there a fake Nurse Kelley? And I always get poked fun about it. But I'm telling you, 22-year-old Kelley chose this, and now it's just, it's on so many social media platforms that it would be so funny. But yeah, on everything, and just real Nurse Kelley, and it's Kelley with an EY. But yeah, I am a nurse and I love nursing. And at the time, Instagram, you kind of had to pick certain things that you could stick with for a long time. And that showed that you were the official person, because there was a lot of whatever happening in the world. And so
that's
yes, please don't exactly. I'm like, please don't think it's crazy, because it's just a silly Instagram handle. But yeah, that's where most people can find me. And honestly, you're more than welcome to, if anyone is listening, to reach out on my email that's on my Instagram account. If you have any specific questions, or to DM me, I'm more than happy to answer them. I hope that this was encouraging for sure. And if you are in that tough season, we were as well. This didn't come from not working on it. But if you try every day and you show up every day and you're there and you're patient and you're kind, and you do spend one-on-one time with your step kiddo or your step parent, which is really important to actually get to know them and get to know their heart and kind of fall in love with each other. It really can be done for I don't think there's one unsalvageable situation. I really believe that you can get there. It does take time, but if you love that kid or you love that parent, just put in the time, keep trying, show up, be there for them. And that's all it'll take.
Awesome.
I love that. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad that you were able to hear from Nurse Kelley and just her amazing story and her hope and her encouragement. You guys, we just want to remind you again, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can click the bell to get notifications of when our podcasts come out every week. Also, if you have not left a review on our podcast, we would love for you to do so. It helps us to learn what you want to hear, and just helps give hope and encouragement to other viewers. And so today we want to highlight Chloe Dwyer, who left a review, 5-star review. And this is what Chloe had to say about the podcast. Chloe said, "The Blended Kingdom Families podcast is such a blessing and breath of fresh air." Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.
It is to help the blended family feel like they have a place. Listeners can receive teaching and encouragement for other families who have gone through similar situations when dealing with the ever-changing family dynamics. So true. Thankful for the vision and leadership of Scott and Vanessa. Aw, thank you, Chloe. And their heart to help families and help point them to God to find healing and restoration. So thank you, Chloe. And thank you again, guys, for joining us today.
You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Be blessed in all that you do.
Hey BKF community, we want to hear from you guys. If you would take the time to leave us a review, and you can find us on all social media platforms. Our podcast is on every podcast platform, and you can visit us at our website at www.blendedkingdomfamilies.com.
Yeah, guys, we're trying to reach every blended family all over the world, and we can't do this without your partnership. So please take a minute, share, comment, review, tell your friends. Tell them they can all go to blendedkingdomfamilies.com for great resources.